There have been numerous Star Wars games at this point, but I'm still thoroughly surprised whenever one of them absolutely nails the sensation of existing inside of its rich universe. Respawn gets so much right in many different ways with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. You'll probably hear this a lot, but it's a surprisingly good blend of three kinds of games. The platforming and puzzle solving of something like Prince of Persia or Uncharted, the combat of a more methodical action game like Dark Souls or Sekiro, and the maze-like exploration of Metroid. The game takes place after the prequels and before the original trilogy. The story follows the adventures of Cal Kestis, a former Jedi Padawan in hiding, who works as a scrapper salvaging any valuable parts from crashed wreckage. After the Empire's infamous Order 66, which sought to eliminate all of the existing Jedi in the galaxy, Cal lives in fear of his secret coming to light and being executed as a result. It's not long before Cal is thrust back into the swing of things and joined by Seer Junda and Grease Dreedus, who save him after narrowly escaping death at the hands of the mysterious Second Sister. It's up to them to see if any Jedi have survived and unite them to aid the rebels in their fight against the Empire. Jedi Fallen Order has all of the ingredients of a classic Star Wars story and fuses it to a thrilling adventure that shows off new parts of the ever-expanding galaxy. There's a textural quality to a Star Wars adventure that is hard to sum up, but you know it when you see it, hear it, and in this case particularly, feel it. From the music that's reminiscent of the classic film's scores, to the carefully detailed interior of the Mantis, the game's version of the scrappy Millennium Falcon, Star Wars fans, myself included, have plenty to feast on when it comes to seeing a lot of that universe up close. You'll travel back and forth from various planets exploring each world's intricate map in search of clues to advance the story, and fight a variety of enemies that range from wild alien creatures to different stormtroopers equipped with blasters and rocket launchers. Outside of the order of certain tasks, the progression seems fairly linear, although traversing the world usually boils down to picking one path and backtracking if you run into a dead end. Like Souls games, you'll return to those dead ends later as ways to activate shortcuts and connect parts of the map that previously took you through a longer detour. I love the sense of geography that you will learn to memorize over time and the flexibility that the game gives you in terms of combat that can feel liberating and challenging all at the same time. It's not shy about hiding these mechanics either, and in many ways it makes for a much better experience because it doesn't bother trying to reason or justify its existence as a fun plaything. It's a combination of what I used to think were three different genres altogether, but Respawn makes it gel unbelievably well inside of the Star Wars universe, which is full of believable scenarios to dive into each style. However, as much as it looks and sounds like a thing I love so dearly, there are moments where the glossy paint chips, and they can otherwise spoil the seamless flow. Let's start with the platforming. Jedi Fallen Order very elegantly contextualizes Cal's restart from square one as a Jedi Padawan by needing to relive flashbacks of your training with your former Jedi Master. So before you utilize your Force Push, for example, you need to first remember your training and enter a little X-Men style danger room where you practice a particular ability before you flash forward back to wherever you left off. The abilities themselves are all things you've seen in the movies, but one is very much an addition that has Respawn's fingerprints all over it: wall running. Respawn were given the keys to go wild with running, climbing, swinging, jumping, and sliding all over this giant Star Wars playground, and you can sense the joy that these level designers felt in crafting these obstacles because they all work really well together. Whenever I get a good parkour line that involves jumping from wall to wall, swinging on vines, I get flashbacks to Prince of Persia. I forgot how fun this kind of platforming can feel, and how thrilling it can be to barely clear that gap and grab hold of a ledge. For the most part, jumping and wall running felt pretty solid and forgivable if I failed to completely nail a parkour line the way I might have wanted to. It's the moments where the game thrusts me into these fun but cumbersome slopes, where Cal has to line up with the vine or awkwardly turn in time where I encountered the most problems. Controlling Cal can feel unresponsive, and attempting to line him up to a single vine hanging in the distance can be way more frustrating than it needs to be. Eventually you'll be able to grab those vines easier, but the slopes remain my least favorite part of the game so far. These moments don't last long, thankfully, but some of them are annoying and can interrupt what otherwise was an enjoyable flow through the world. Along the way, you'll meet the adorable BD-1, a helpful little droid buddy who plays a crucial role in your survival and navigation. You'll discover workbenches, which basically equate to upgrades that will help you either in combat or exploration. Maybe you'll get a fancy new lightsaber, or BD-1 will unlock a new way to open a previously blocked path. Exploration generally leads to hidden cosmetic goodies, like a new poncho, or materials for your lightsaber, which, yes, you can customize. Or sometimes it can lead to more permanent upgrades, like BD-1's ability to carry more healing items, which can certainly come in handy in the long run. Much like Metroid, there will be obstacles that you'll come across that block a certain path. Until you unlock an ability for yourself or BD1, those are usually off limits temporarily. Eventually, BD1 will gain new ways to open doors and zoom across ziplines, which will help you backtrack or reach areas that were previously inaccessible. Combat works like a game by From Software, makers of Bloodborne and Sekiro, and it's not shy about the things it lifts from those games. It also works nearly perfectly in the world of Star Wars too, with its infinite variety of creatures and Empire baddies. You and your trusty lightsaber battle against aliens, droids, and stormtroopers using a suite of Jedi skills. For example, blocking incoming blaster fire can help you stave off any damage from enemies too far away to deal with, but timing it right before the shot hits you can send it right back to them. In addition to being able to force push and pull enemies towards you and off of ledges, there's even a decent amount of flexibility there before you even strike with your lightsaber, assuming you have enough juice in your force meter. Your force meter also dictates how many times you can utilize your force attacks, which are basically heavy attacks. So this means a dash towards enemies or a slower but heavier downward slash that breaks their guard, leaving them wide open for a finishing move. Quick attacks can do the same thing, but they may take a bit longer and can be defended against. They also help build your force meter, so it all works in tandem. Fights generally come down to incorporating every skill and makes each encounter feel mindful in ways that challenge you to remember when to shift from one skill set to another. There are moments, however, when it doesn't feel as tight as something like Sekiro, for example, and animations and button placement aren't ideal for desperately trying to heal as you get swarmed by cheap enemies that pop out of the ground. There are also moments where animations maybe last a frame or two longer than I wish they would, and as a result, I'm forced to make my way back from the last checkpoint. This can also be true during platforming or after defeating an enemy too close to a ledge. One or two extra steps can sometimes mean falling off of a platform or stumbling into the rocket of a trooper off in the distance. Unless you're playing with a controller with paddles on them like I have, taking your fingers off the left thumbstick to heal leaves you wide open for an attack that you might not see coming, or rolling into the direction of an enemy off screen you didn't see. It certainly becomes a game of memorization in certain rooms where, like a From Software game, it might just be better to book it and avoid fights in general. That's if you don't mind missing out on some XP. There are spots for Cal to meditate that serve as little checkpoints for you to save your game, upgrade your skill tree, unlock new abilities, and rest. Resting will fully heal you, fill up BD1's healing stimulants, and respawn enemies into the world. You'll also be brought back here in the event that you die in combat, assuming it's not during a boss fight, which have their own mini checkpoints. You'll still keep the stuff you've collected, thankfully, but getting sent back to a checkpoint can be brutal after making a ton of progress. Any XP you've gained along the way, however, will remain attached to the enemy that killed you, so the game nudges you back into the fight to get at least one hit in, and return later on when you're ready. It certainly takes a page from the From Software playbook, and if you're familiar with those games and can enjoy brutally challenging fights, play on Jedi Master. Just be warned, it's pretty damn tough. Overall though, I'm really enjoying the story, and the little connections to the films that flesh everything out. As a Star Wars fan, it's got all the ingredients I need to spend time in a universe I've come to love so much already, and it's certainly a fun blockbuster ride through it all. We'll also have our review on the site soon, so stay tuned.
The Jedi is here. That's probably not...